The galaxy was vast, endless, and filled with secrets that humanity had only begun to uncover. For centuries, Earth's people had dreamed of reaching the stars, and now they were finally there, scattered across planets and moons in ships powered by advanced technology. But this expansion came at a cost. Galactic laws, enforced by an interstellar council made up of dozens of alien species, kept humanity in check. These laws were strict, designed to prevent any one race from becoming too powerful or venturing into forbidden zones where ancient dangers might lie. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the eclipse, staring out at the swirling colors of the Veil Nebula. It was beautiful, haunting even, but also off-limits. The nebula was surrounded by warnings, myths, and stories whispered among pilots and explorers who dared to speak of it. Some said it held ruins of an ancient civilization. Others claimed it contained weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Whatever the truth was, the Council forbade anyone from entering it, and Alex knew better than to question their orders, or so he told himself. Alex wasn't alone on the bridge. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe sat nearby, her eyes scanning the screens in front of her. She was sharp, quick-witted, and shared Alex's quiet frustration with the Council's restrictions. They had served together for years, building a bond that went beyond rank. While Alex often wrestled with doubts about following orders, Rachel acted as both his sounding board and his moral compass. "Anything interesting today?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. Rachel shook her head. "Same as always. Nothing unusual. Just another day watching nothing happen." Alex smirked but didn't respond. He turned back to the viewport, his mind drifting. The Veil Nebula loomed, large, its vibrant hues shifting like a living thing. Humanity had been told to stay away, but why? What did the Council fear? Was it truly dangerous, or was it just something they didn't want anyone else to have? Before he could dwell further, an alert flashed on the main screen. A small blip appeared near the nebula's edge, moving erratically. Rachel leaned forward, her fingers flying over the controls. "Got something here, Commander. Looks like debris, maybe wreckage." "Bring it up," Alex ordered. The image resolved, revealing fragments of metal floating in space. At first glance, they seemed ordinary. Bits of hull plating twisted and scorched. But then Rachel pointed to one piece glowing faintly with an unnatural light. "That doesn't look natural," she said. Alex frowned. "Zoom in." As the camera focused, the object came into clearer view. It was jagged, covered in strange symbols etched into its surface. The glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Whatever it wasn't human-made. "We should bring it aboard," Rachel suggested. Alex hesitated. Retrieving unknown objects from space was risky, especially when they came from a forbidden zone. Still, curiosity got the better of him. "Prepare a team. We'll retrieve it manually." Minutes later, Alex suited up and joined 2 crew members outside the ship. The cold vacuum of space pressed against his suit as he floated toward the artifact. Up close, it was even stranger than it had looked on the screen. The symbols seemed to shift slightly, as if alive, and the pulsing light grew brighter when he reached out to touch it. Back inside the eclipse, the artifact was placed in a containment chamber for analysis. The crew worked tirelessly, running, scans and tests, but the results were inconclusive. It defied every known material and energy signature. Alex called Rachel to the lab, where scientists pored over data. "What do you think?" he asked her. She crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. "It's not like anything we've seen before. Could be alien tech. Maybe even from whoever built those rumored structures in the nebula." Alex nodded slowly. "If that's true, then we're sitting on something big." Word of their discovery spread quickly. Within hours, the Council sent a message demanding an explanation. Their tone was firm, bordering on threatening. "Return to Federation territory immediately." The base transmission read, "Further investigation is prohibited." Alex clenched his fists. The Council's reaction only deepened his suspicions. Why were they so afraid of what lay in the nebula? And why did they care so much about a single piece of debris? He gathered his senior staff in the briefing room to discuss their options. Opinions were divided. Some argued they should comply with the Council's demands, citing the risks of provoking a conflict. Others, including Rachel, believed they had a duty to explore further. If we turn back now, Rachel said, we'll never know what's out there. This could be our chance to prove humanity isn't just a minor player in the galaxy. Alex agreed, though the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. If they disobeyed the council, they would be branded traitors. Yet if they obeyed, they might miss an opportunity to change everything, for better or worse. After hours of deliberation, Alex made his decision. We're going in, he announced. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. Not recklessly, but carefully. We'll take the artifact with us and see where it leads. If the council wants to stop us, they'll have to try. Preparations began immediately. The crew readied the ship for a jump deeper into the nebula, knowing full well the dangers ahead. As the eclipse moved closer to the glowing expanse, tension mounted. No one knew what awaited them, but one thing was certain. History was about to change. The ship entered the nebula, its sensors overwhelmed by the chaotic energy surrounding them. Colors danced across the viewport, shifting and swirling like liquid rainbows. Static crackled over the comms, and instruments flickered unpredictably. Despite the chaos, Alex remained calm, guiding the ship steadily forward. Then, without warning, the artifact flared to life. Its glow intensified, bathing the bridge in eerie light. Symbols on its surface lit up, spinning faster and faster until they blurred into streaks of gold. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and more insistent. "What's happening?" Rachel demanded, gripping the edge of her console. "I don't know," Alex replied, his voice steady despite the unease creeping into his chest. "But I think we're about to find out." The hum peaked, and suddenly the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to regain control. Outside the viewport, the nebula seemed to twist and fold, pulling them deeper into its heart. For a moment, everything went dark. When the lights returned, the eclipse was no longer alone. Surrounding them were massive structures, spires of alien design jutting out from the void like jagged teeth. In the distance, a colossal form loomed, dwarfing even the largest human vessels. It was a Dyson sphere, encasing a dying star within its shell. Alex stared in awe, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This was beyond anything humanity had imagined, beyond anything the Council had warned them about. Whatever secrets lay hidden here, they were worth risking everything for. And so, with determination burning in his heart, Alex gave the order to proceed. The eclipse moved cautiously toward the sphere, its crew united by a shared sense of purpose. They were explorers, pioneers stepping into the unknown. Galactic laws forbade it, but humanity's warship marked the moment history split. As the ship drew nearer, the artifact pulsed once more, as if urging them onward. Alex felt a thrill of excitement mixed with dread. There was no turning back now. News of the artifact and the eclipse's discovery spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Back on Earth, debates raged in hushed tones among government officials and scientists alike. The Council's ultimatum had been broadcast across all communication channels, demanding the immediate return of the eclipse to Federation territory. Yet, for every voice calling for compliance, there was another urging defiance. Some saw the artifact as proof that humanity was being held back unnecessarily, while others feared the consequences of challenging galactic law. On board the eclipse, the crew felt the weight of these discussions even though they were light years away. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe stood beside Commander Alex Carter on the bridge, her arms crossed as she studied the view screen showing the massive alien structures surrounding them. Her expression was unreadable, but Alex knew she was thinking about the same thing he was, the enormity of what they had stumbled upon. "This changes everything," Rachel said finally, breaking the silence. Alex nodded. "It does, but not everyone sees it that way." Rachel turned to him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You mean the Council?" "They're scared," Alex replied. "They've kept us boxed in for so long because they don't want us getting too powerful. If we bring this tech back, or worse, use it, they lose control." "And if we don't?" Rachel asked, her voice quieter now. "What happens then?" Alex hesitated. He didn't have an answer, at least not one that would satisfy her. or himself. The truth was, no matter which path they chose, there would be consequences. Returning meant surrendering their chance to understand the artifact and potentially unlocking its secrets. Staying meant defying the Council outright, risking war with species far older and more advanced than humanity. Before either of them could say more, alarms blared through the ship. A second fleet had appeared on the edge of the nebula, an armada, loyal to the Council, sent to intercept the eclipse. Their message was clear: surrender the artifact or face destruction. Panic rippled through the crew. Some began preparing defensive maneuvers, while others exchanged worried glances. Alex moved quickly to the command console, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Even with the advanced systems of the eclipse, fighting back wasn't an option. Not yet. "Commander," Rachel said urgently, "we need to decide. Now." Alex glanced at her, then at the view screen displaying the approaching ships. His jaw tightened. "We're not giving up," he said firmly. "Not here. Not now." With that, he gave the order to jump deeper into the nebula. The engines roared to life and the eclipse surged forward, slipping past the Council's blockade just as their weapons charged. For a moment, it seemed like they might escape unscathed, but then a volley of plasma fire streaked toward them, narrowly missing the ship's aft. The impact shook the vessel, throwing several crew members off balance. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles and warning lights flashed across the bridge. Despite the chaos, Alex remained focused, guiding the ship further into the swirling mists of the nebula. Behind them, the Council's fleet hesitated, unwilling or unable to follow into the unpredictable energy fields. When the shaking subsided, Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The crew cheered weakly, relief mingling with exhaustion. They had evaded capture, but at what cost? Humanity was now officially rogue, branded as lawbreakers by the very Council that governed the galaxy. As the eclipse ventured deeper into the nebula, strange phenomena began to occur. Time seemed to stretch and compress unpredictably. Crew members reported hearing faint whispers echoing through the corridors, voices speaking in languages none of them recognized. Sensors malfunctioned sporadically and shadows flickered at the edges of vision, vanishing when approached. Lieutenant Ryan Cole, a staunch advocate for following galactic law, grew increasingly agitated. He confronted Alex in private, his face flushed with anger. "This is madness," he snapped. "You've doomed us all. Do you realize what you've done?" "I realize exactly what I've done," Alex shot back, his voice calm but firm. "I've given us a chance to stand on our own instead of bowing to every demand the Council throws at us." Ryan shook his head. "Standing on our own won't matter if we're dead. Or worse, if whatever's out here decides we're not. Worth keeping around." Despite his frustration, Alex couldn't deny the truth in Ryan's words. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the environment became. Yet, turning back wasn't an option, not after everything they'd risked to get this far. Meanwhile, engineer Daniel Harper and communications officer Emily Shaw worked tirelessly in the lab, trying to make sense of the artifact. Its pulsing glow had intensified since their arrival in the nebula, and the symbols etched into its surface now shifted constantly, forming patterns that seemed almost deliberate. Daniel ran scans while Emily recorded audio samples of the whispers haunting the ship, hoping to find some clue about their origin. "We're dealing with something beyond us," Daniel muttered, rubbing his temples. "Something ancient." Emily nodded, her gaze fixed on the artifact. "Do you think it's alive?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just reacting to us. Either way, we need to tread carefully." Their findings only added to the tension aboard the ship. Rumors spread among the crew, fueled by fear and uncertainty. Some believed the artifact was leading them somewhere specific, while others thought it was luring them into a trap. Arguments broke out in the mess hall, and alliances began to form based on trust, or lack thereof. Rachel noticed the growing divide and brought her concerns to Alex. "We can't afford to fracture now," she warned. "If the crew turns against each other, we're finished." "I know," Alex replied, his tone heavy with worry. "But how do we stop it?" Rachel thought for a moment. "Transparency. Tell them everything. What we know, what we suspect. Let them decide for themselves whether they believe in this mission." It was a risky move, but Alex agreed. That evening, he gathered the entire crew in the main hall, standing before them with the artifact displayed behind him. He spoke plainly, laying out the facts without sugarcoating the dangers. He admitted he didn't have all the answers and acknowledged the possibility that they might never leave the nebula alive. But if we succeed, he concluded, we'll change the course of history, not just for humanity, but for every species in the galaxy. We'll prove that we're capable of standing alongside them as equals. His words resonated with many, though not everyone was convinced. Ryan Cole led a small group of dissenters who continued to argue for retreat, but their numbers dwindled as the days passed. The crew rallied around Alex, united by a shared sense of purpose. As the eclipse pressed onward, the alien structures grew larger and more intricate. Towering spires rose from the void, their surfaces adorned with glowing runes that pulsed in sync with the artifact. Eventually, the ship reached a massive gateway carved into the side of one such structure. It radiated power, humming softly as if inviting them closer. Alex stared at the gateway, his heart pounding. This was it, the threshold between the known and the unknown. Whatever lay beyond, it would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Forever. Open it, he ordered. Emily worked quickly, interfacing the artifact with the ship's systems. After several tense minutes, the gateway activated, parting like a curtain to reveal a vast chamber bathed in golden light. Without hesitation, Alex guided the eclipse inside. What awaited them was beyond comprehension, a sprawling cityscape suspended in midair, its buildings made of shimmering metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. In the center of the chamber stood a colossal obelisk, taller than any skyscraper on Earth. It pulsed with the same energy as the artifact, casting waves of light across the room. The crew gazed in awe, their fears momentarily forgotten. They had found it. The heart of the nebula, and with it, the potential to reshape their destiny. But as Alex stepped onto the transporter pad to lead an exploration team, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Something, or someone, was waiting for them. The golden glow of the chamber enveloped the crew as they stepped off the transporter pad, their boots clicking softly against the smooth metallic floor. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the faint hum of the obelisk echoed around them like a heartbeat. Commander Alex Carter led the exploration team, his rifle slung over his shoulder but his hand resting near the trigger. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe followed close behind, her eyes scanning the surroundings with sharp precision. Engineer Daniel Harper and Communications Officer Emily Shaw brought up the rear, carrying equipment to analyze the strange environment. The cityscape inside the chamber was unlike anything they had ever seen. Buildings twisted and curved in impossible shapes, their surfaces shimmering as though alive. Pathways floated in midair, connecting structures that defied gravity. It was beautiful, surreal, and deeply unsettling. Shadows moved at the edges of vision, vanishing whenever someone turned to look directly at them. Whispers filled the air, soft and indistinct, as if the walls themselves were speaking. "This place feels wrong," Daniel muttered, adjusting the scanner in his hands. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Rachel replied, her voice low. "Stay alert." Alex nodded, his gaze fixed on the towering obelisk at the center of the chamber. Its surface was covered in glowing symbols that pulsed rhythmically, matching the beat of the hum in the air. He felt drawn to it, as though it were calling to him, but he forced himself to focus, reminding the team to proceed cautiously. They split into two groups to cover more ground. Alex and Rachel headed toward the obelisk, while Daniel and Emily explored one of the nearby structures. As they moved deeper into the chamber, the whispers grew louder, forming words that none of them could fully understand. Alex shook his head, trying to clear the sound, but it lingered, pressing against his thoughts. "Do you hear that?" Rachel asked, her voice tense. "I hear it," Alex replied. "Ignore it for now. We need to figure out what this place is." When they reached the base of the obelisk, they found a panel embedded in its surface. The symbols etched into it matched those on the artifact they had retrieved earlier. Without hesitation, Alex placed the artifact against the panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the obelisk lit up, its glow intensifying until it filled the entire chamber. A holographic projection appeared above them, showing images of a civilization long gone. The projections depicted a race of beings far advanced, their technology capable of bending matter and energy to their will. They had built this city, harnessing the power of the dying star encased within the Dyson sphere. But their prosperity came at a cost. The projections shifted, showing scenes of conflict. Wars waged over control of their technology, cities crumbling under the weight of greed and ambition. In the end, the civilization collapsed, leaving behind only ruins and the echoes of their downfall. Rachel stared at the images, her expression grim. This is what happens when power goes unchecked. Is this what we're risking by being here? Alex didn't answer immediately. He watched the final moments of the projection where the survivors sealed their greatest achievements inside the obelisk, hoping future generations might learn from their mistakes. When the images faded, the obelisk emitted a low tone, and a doorway opened at its base. "We're not here to repeat their mistakes," Alex said finally. "We're here to make sure humanity doesn't fall into the same trap." Inside the doorway, they found a vast archive filled with data crystals, each containing knowledge far beyond human understanding. Alex picked one up, feeling its weight in his hand. This was it, the key to unlocking unimaginable power. But as he held it, doubt crept into his mind. Was humanity ready for this? Could they handle such responsibility? Meanwhile, Daniel and Emily explored one of the floating buildings. The interior was a maze of corridors lined with glowing panels displaying complex equations and schematics. Emily recorded everything she saw, her fingers flying over her tablet. Daniel examined the walls, noting how the material seemed to adapt to their presence, shifting slightly as they moved. "This isn't just architecture," Daniel said. "It's alive, or at least semi-sentient." Emily nodded, her brow furrowed. "And it's responding to us, like it knows we're here." As they ventured deeper, they stumbled upon a chamber filled with statues. Each statue depicted a member of the ancient civilization, their faces frozen in expressions of sorrow or regret. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested another artifact, a sphere that pulsed with a soft blue light. "What do you think it does?" Emily asked, reaching out hesitantly. Before Daniel could stop her, she touched the sphere. Instantly, the room came to life. The statues began to move, their stone forms cracking as they stepped down from their pedestals. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light as the sphere, and they turned to face Emily and Daniel. Daniel raised his hands slowly, his heart pounding. "Don't move," he whispered. One of the statues stepped forward, its movements stiff but deliberate. It stopped, in front of Emily, tilting its head as if studying her. Then, without warning, it spoke. Not in words, but directly into her mind. "You are not the ones we waited for," it said, its voice cold and mechanical. "But you may serve a purpose." Emily staggered back, clutching her head. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit, but the statues blocked their path. The blue light grew brighter, and the whispers returned, louder than before. Back at the obelisk, Alex and Rachel heard the commotion over their comms. "What's going on?" Alex demanded. "We found something," Daniel replied, his voice strained. "Statues! They're alive, and they don't seem happy to see us." "Get out of there," Alex ordered. "Now!" Daniel and Emily ran, the statues pursuing them through the twisting corridors. The walls seemed to shift, creating dead ends and forcing them to double back. Just as the statues closed in, Alex and Rachel arrived, weapons drawn. They fired at the creatures, their shots causing cracks to form in the stone bodies. The statues faltered, but did not stop. "We can't fight them all," Rachel shouted, reloading her weapon. Alex glanced around, spotting a control panel on the wall. "Cover me!" He sprinted toward the panel, dodging debris as Rachel and Daniel provided covering fire. His fingers flew over the controls, triggering a mechanism that caused the floor beneath the statues to collapse. One by one, they fell into the abyss below, their glowing eyes fading as they disappeared. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped. Emily clutched the sphere tightly, her knuckles white. "We need to take this back to the ship," she said. It might help us understand what's happening here. Alex hesitated, but eventually nodded. Let's go, and keep your eyes open. This place isn't done with us yet. As they made their way back to the eclipse, the whispers followed them, growing louder and more insistent. The shadows moved faster now, darting between the buildings and watching their every step. It was clear they were being guided, or herded, towards something. When they returned to the ship, tensions ran high. Lieutenant Ryan Cole confronted Alex in the hangar bay, his face red with anger. "You're leading us to our deaths," he accused. "Every step we take brings us closer to disaster. And every step we don't take keeps us stuck under the Council's thumb," Alex shot back. "If you want to leave, fine. But I'm not giving up." Ryan clenched his fists, but said nothing. Instead, he stormed off, muttering under his breath. Alex watched him go, knowing the dissent among the crew was growing. He couldn't blame them, not entirely. What they had found was both a gift and a curse, and the line between salvation and destruction was razor thin. In the lab, Daniel and Emily worked tirelessly to decipher the data crystals and the sphere. The information was overwhelming, detailing technologies that could revolutionize humanity, or destroy it. Emily suggested focusing on defensive applications first, ensuring they had tools to protect themselves if things went south. Daniel agreed, though he couldn't shake the feeling they were playing with fire. As hours turned into days, the crew began experiencing strange side effects. Headaches plagued nearly everyone, and some reported vivid dreams of the ancient civilization. In these dreams, they saw glimpses of the civilization's rise and fall, feeling the weight of their choices as though they had lived them themselves. Alex woke in a cold sweat one night, haunted by visions of the obelisk collapsing as the dying star consumed everything around it. Rachel found him pacing the bridge later that evening. "You look like hell," she said bluntly. "I feel like it," Alex admitted. "These dreams, they're not random. Something's trying to tell us something." "Maybe it's the obelisk," Rachel suggested. "Or whatever intelligence is behind it. If it's sentient, it could be testing us." "Testing us for what?" Alex asked. Rachel didn't have an answer. She simply shrugged. "Survival. Redemption. Maybe both." The next morning, Alex called a meeting with his senior staff. He laid out the situation plainly, admitting the risks they faced and the toll it was taking on everyone. "We've come too far to turn back now," he said. "But we need to decide, together, what our next move is." The discussion was heated, with opinions divided. Some argued for immediate retreat, while others pushed for further exploration. In the end, Alex made the call. They would stay long enough to gather critical data, then leave before the nebulas. Instability became too dangerous. But as the eclipse prepared to depart, the figure's disappearance left an eerie silence in its wake. The crew of the eclipse stood frozen, their minds racing to process what had just happened. Commander Alex Carter lowered his weapon slowly, his grip still tight, but his focus shifting. He turned to face his team, his expression unreadable. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe stepped forward, her eyes scanning the area where the shadowy figure had been moments before. "What was that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex didn't answer immediately. His mind replayed the figure's words. "Prove yourselves." It wasn't a threat or a promise. It was a challenge. Humanity had stumbled into something far greater than any of them could have imagined, and now they were being tested. Whether it was by the intelligence behind the obelisk, the nebula itself, or some ancient force beyond comprehension, Alex knew one thing for certain. They couldn't afford to fail. "We need to move," Alex said finally, breaking the silence. "If we're being tested, then every decision we make from here on out matters." Rachel nodded, her usual calm demeanor masking the unease growing inside her. She glanced at the crew, noting the mix of fear and determination etched on their, faces. They had come this far together, and now they would have to push even harder if they wanted to survive and succeed. Back on the bridge, Alex called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. Engineer Daniel Harper, communications officer, Emily Shaw, and Lieutenant Ryan Cole joined him, each bringing their own perspective to the table. Tensions were high, especially with Ryan, who still believed the mission was a reckless mistake. "This isn't about proving anything to anyone," Ryan snapped, slamming his hand on the table. "It's about staying alive. Every second we stay here is another chance for something worse to happen. And running away won't solve anything," Alex countered, his voice firm but controlled. "We've made our choice, Ryan. Now we see it through." Ryan clenched his jaw but said nothing more. He knew arguing further wouldn't change Alex's mind, but his frustration simmered beneath the surface. For now, he kept his thoughts to himself, though everyone could see the tension in his posture. Emily broke the uneasy silence. "What do we know so far? About the obelisk, the sphere, and whatever else is out there?" Daniel leaned forward, pulling up holographic displays of the data they had gathered. "The obelisk contains records of the civilization that built this place. Their technology was incredible, but it led to their downfall. The sphere seems to be a key, a tool for accessing deeper levels of their systems, but activating it might unlock things we can't control." Alex listened intently, piecing together the fragments of information. "Then we proceed carefully. We use the sphere to access what we need, but we don't activate anything until we understand the risks," Rachel chimed in. "And we keep monitoring the crew. Whatever's happening here is affecting all of us. Headaches, dreams, paranoia. If it gets worse, we'll lose cohesion." Agreement settled over the group, though unease lingered. The plan was simple. Return to the obelisk, use the sphere to unlock more data, and extract as much knowledge as possible without triggering catastrophic consequences. But simplicity didn't mean safety, and everyone knew it. The journey back to the obelisk felt longer than before. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent, filling the corridors of the eclipse. Shadows flickered at the edges of vision, darting away whenever someone turned to look. The crew worked in pairs, unwilling to walk alone. Even the ship's systems began behaving erratically, sensors glitching and lights dimming unpredictably. When they reached the chamber, the obelisk loomed larger than ever, its glow pulsating like a living thing. Alex held the sphere tightly, feeling its warmth against his palm. He approached the pedestal where they had first placed the artifact, slotting the sphere into a matching indentation. The moment it clicked into place, the room came alive. The symbols on the obelisk shifted rapidly, forming patterns that seemed to flow like liquid. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it vibrated through the floor beneath their feet. Then, a voice spoke, not in whispers, but in clear tones that echoed around them. "You seek knowledge," it said. "But knowledge comes at a price." Alex stepped back instinctively, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I am the remnant of those who came before," the voice replied. "A guardian of their legacy. You wish to claim their power, yet you do not understand its cost." Rachel stepped forward, her tone measured. "We're not claiming anything. We're trying to learn, to ensure humanity doesn't repeat your mistakes." The voice paused, as if considering her words. "Learning requires sacrifice. Will you pay the price?" "What price?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the knot tightening in his stomach. "The truth," the voice answered. "To unlock the secrets of this place, you must confront the flaws within yourselves. Only then will you prove worthy." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The chamber shifted, walls dissolving into new pathways that led deeper into the structure. The crew exchanged wary glances, unsure whether to follow or retreat. But Alex didn't hesitate. If this was part of the test, they had no choice but to face it head-on. They moved cautiously, following the glowing paths that stretched before them. Along the way, they encountered illusions, visions tailored to each member of the team. Emily saw herself standing on Earth, surrounded by loved ones she hadn't seen in years. Daniel faced a version of himself consumed by greed, hoarding alien tech for personal gain. Ryan confronted a memory of a failed mission, reliving the guilt and shame he had buried deep inside. For Alex, the vision was different. He found himself standing on the bridge of the eclipse, but the ship was in ruins. Bodies of his crew lay scattered across the floor, their lifeless eyes staring accusingly at him. The voice echoed once more. "This is the cost of failure. Is this what you desire?" Alex shook his head, forcing himself to wake from the illusion. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the corridor, sweat dripping down his face. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression softening. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Alex replied. though his voice betrayed his shaken state. "Let's keep moving." Each vision forced the crew to confront their fears, doubts, and regrets. By the time they reached the end of the path, they were exhausted but clearer in their resolve. The final chamber awaited them, its walls lined with glowing panels displaying intricate designs. At the center stood a console, humming, softly as if waiting to be activated. "This is it," Alex said, stepping toward the console. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." He placed his hand on the console, and the room erupted in light. Streams of data flooded the air, surrounding them in a cascade of information. Emily worked quickly, recording everything she could, while Daniel analyzed the patterns. The knowledge was vast, detailing technologies capable of reshaping matter, manipulating energy, and even bending time itself. But as the download progressed, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The ground shook violently, and cracks spread across the walls. The voice returned, louder and angrier. "You take too much. The balance must be restored." Alex turned to the others, his mind racing. "We need to shut it down, now." Daniel hesitated, his fingers hovering over the controls. "If we stop now, we lose everything we've gained. And if we don't, we lose everything, period." Rachel shot back. "Trust me, Daniel. This isn't worth dying for." Reluctantly, Daniel complied, initiating a shutdown sequence. The data stream slowed, then stopped altogether. The chamber stabilized, the shaking subsiding as the light dimmed. For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice spoke again, softer this time. "You have chosen wisely. Though your path remains uncertain, you have proven yourselves capable of restraint. Go forth and remember the lessons of those who came before." With that, the chamber dissolved, depositing the crew back outside the obelisk. The golden glow had faded, leaving only a quiet stillness in its place. Alex looked at his team, their faces pale but resolute. They had survived the test, but at a cost. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew worked to process the limited data they had salvaged. It wasn't enough to fully harness the ancient technology, but it was a start. As they prepared to leave the nebula, Alex addressed the crew one last time. "We came here seeking answers," he said, his voice carrying across the hangar bay. "And we found them. Not just in the data, but in ourselves. What we do next defines us. Let's make sure it's something worth remembering." The Eclipse launched into the void, leaving the Veil Nebula behind. But as they emerged into open space, they realized the galaxy was watching. News of their defiance had spread, sparking outrage among the Council and admiration among others. Humanity's actions had split history into countless possibilities, each branching off into unknown futures. For better or worse, the Warship Eclipse had marked the moment humanity stepped onto the galactic stage. And Alex knew. One day they would return to finish what they had started. The Eclipse emerged from the veil, nebula transformed, not just in appearance, but in purpose. Its hull gleamed with alien alloys scavenged during their escape, and its systems hummed with energy harvested from the ancient obelisk. The crew moved through the corridors with a mix of pride and exhaustion, their faces etched with the weight of what they had endured. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars as the nebula faded into the distance behind them. For the first time in days, there was silence, not the oppressive kind that came with fear, but the quiet calm of resolution. Alex turned to Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, who stood beside him, her arms crossed. "We've done it," he said softly. "Against all odds, we made it out." Rachel nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "For now. But this is only the beginning. The Council isn't going to let us walk away from this." Alex knew she was right. Word of their defiance had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Humanity's actions had ignited a storm of controversy, dividing species and factions. Some viewed them as heroes, rebels standing up against an oppressive system. Others saw them as reckless invaders, threatening the fragile balance of galactic peace. The Council had already branded them traitors, mobilizing fleets to hunt them down. It was only a matter of time before they caught up. But Alex wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it head-on. He gathered the senior staff in the briefing room to discuss their next move. Engineer Daniel Harper, Communications Officer Emily Shaw, and even Lieutenant Ryan Cole joined the meeting, though tensions still lingered between them. "We can't go back to Earth," Alex began, his voice steady. "Not yet. If we do, the Council will use us as an example, to crush any hope of rebellion among other species." "Then where do we go?" Emily asked, leaning forward. "We can't outrun them forever." "We don't have to run," Alex replied. "We find allies, species who feel the same way we do about the Council. Together we build something new." Ryan scoffed, shaking his head. "You're talking about starting a war. Do you realize how many lives that will cost?" "It's not about starting a war," Alex shot back. "It's about survival, about proving that humanity has a place in this galaxy, a real place, not one dictated by the Council." Rachel stepped in before the argument escalated. "Alex is right. We can't undo what's been done, but we also can't fight alone. If we want to stand a chance, we need help." Daniel nodded slowly, his mind working through the possibilities. "The data we salvaged, it's incomplete, but it's enough to give us an edge. With time, we can adapt the technology to our systems, make the Eclipse stronger than ever." "And faster," Emily added. "If we upgrade the engines, we might be able to stay ahead of the Council long enough to gather support." The plan took shape quickly. They would retrofit the ship using the alien tech, making it faster, stronger, and more resilient. At the same time, they would reach out to sympathetic species, forging alliances in secret. It wouldn't be easy, but it was their best shot. As work began, the crew threw themselves into the task with renewed determination. Daniel and Emily led teams modifying the ship's systems, integrating the alien alloys and energy sources into its core. The process was painstaking, requiring constant adjustments to prevent overloading the reactors. Meanwhile, Rachel coordinated communications, sending encrypted messages to contacts across the galaxy, rogue traders, dissident factions, anyone who might listen. Alex spent much of his time on the bridge, monitoring their progress and keeping an eye on the sensors for signs of pursuit. The Council's ships were out there, searching. Sooner or later, they would find them. But until then, every second counted. Days turned into weeks, and the Eclipse grew stronger with each passing hour. The crew worked tirelessly, fueled by a shared sense of purpose. Even Ryan, who had once opposed Alex's decisions, found himself contributing, his doubts giving way to grim resolve. They were no longer just a crew. They were a family bound by survival and sacrifice. One evening, as Alex stood on the observation deck, Rachel joined him. She leaned against the railing, gazing out at the stars. "Do you think we can pull this off?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But I do know one thing, we're not backing down. Not after everything we've been through." Rachel smiled faintly. "That's what I thought you'd say." Before either of them could speak further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Alex rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. On the view screen, a fleet of Council ships appeared, blocking their path. Their weapons were charged, their formations tight and aggressive. A transmission crackled to life, and the cold voice of a Council representative filled the air. "You have violated galactic law," the voice declared. "Surrender immediately, or face annihilation." Alex clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. He glanced at Rachel, who gave him a nod of reassurance. Then he addressed the crew over the comms. "This is it, everyone. Hold your positions. We're not letting them take us without a fight." The battle that followed was intense. Plasma fire streaked across space as the Eclipse darted through. The enemy fleet, its upgraded engines allowing it to outmaneuver larger ships. The alien tech proved invaluable, creating shields that absorbed hits that would have otherwise crippled them. But the Council's numbers were overwhelming, and the Eclipse sustained heavy damage. In the heat of the fight, Alex made a bold decision. He ordered the ship to dive straight into an asteroid field nearby, knowing the larger vessels wouldn't be able to follow. The maneuver was risky, but it paid off. As the Council fleet hesitated at the edge of the field, the Eclipse slipped through the chaos, emerging on the other side battered but intact. Once clear, Alex set a course for a remote sector of space, where they had arranged a meeting with potential allies. When they arrived, they found a ragtag group of ships waiting, a mix of smugglers, rebels, and rogue scientists united by a common cause. Among them was Captain Marcus Hale, a grizzled veteran known for his hatred of the Council. "You've got guts showing up here," Marcus said as he boarded the Eclipse. "Most folks wouldn't risk tangling with the Council. We didn't." "Have a choice," Alex replied. "And neither do you. If the Council wins, none of us are safe." Marcus studied him for a moment, then grinned. "Fair enough. What's your plan?" Alex laid it out plainly. "Unite the disparate factions under one banner, pooling resources and knowledge to challenge the Council's dominance." It was a long shot, but Marcus agreed to join them, bringing his fleet into the fold. Slowly, but surely others followed suit, drawn by the promise of freedom and the allure of humanity's newfound technology. With their numbers growing, Alex and his crew set to work building a coalition capable of standing against the Council. They trained together, fought together, and planned together, forging bonds that transcended species and backgrounds. The Eclipse became the heart of the movement, a symbol of defiance and hope. But Alex knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The Council wouldn't give up easily, and the cost of failure would be catastrophic. Yet, as he looked out at the assembled fleet, he felt a spark of optimism. Humanity had taken its first steps toward true independence, carving out a place among the stars. When the final battle came, it would define not just their fate, but the future of the galaxy. For better or worse, history had split, and humanity's warship marked the moment everything changed.